During the comic book boom of the 1960s, when it came to superheroes, the bigger the better. So how did the story of an awkward high school student...
Hey, tell him to stop!
He was just this kid.
People didn't like him, and he was a bit of a nerd.
that no one wanted to publish...
Part spider. People will hate that.
become one of the most beloved superheroes of all time?
Spider-Man resonated with people.
Born of two creators.
Spider-Man.
From groovy beginnings.
So Spider-Man?
Spider-Man
does whatever a spider can.
To breathtaking artistry.
Wow, that's magic.
Spider-Man, the movie.
It's a story of financial ruin.
And they really wanted to make this movie on the cheap.
Marvel Comics went into bankruptcy.
Takeovers.
He fired everybody.
And studio battles.
It was just a mess.
I'm Peter Parker.
Three heroes.
You're Spider-Man. Obviously, he brought his A game.
And three visionaries.
Nobody wanted him to do it.
Talk about an outside-the-box choice.
A skeptical studio.
Sony was so upset.
They didn't even understand how all the pieces were going to fit together.
Missed opportunities.
I told them they were fucking idiots.
Sometimes it just doesn't come together.
Bad decisions.
You put an actor who's claustrophobic in a suit like that?
They said anyone involved with the Green Goblin costume should be shot.
Oh, this is giving me PTSD.
It's a roller coaster ride.
They were so mad at me, my God.
Unprecedented failures.
The fans hated it.
It was terrible.
And spectacular achievements.
We all knew we had something really special.
Probably one of the most iconic scenes in any movie.
You are amazing.
It's a tale of love.
There was a sex scene on the Brooklyn Bridge.
Violence.
She threw a sandwich at him.
If you have a hammer, everything starts looking like a nail.
And heartbreak.
Just a bad time.
We pivoted immediately.
That little scenario screwed up my entire life.
I didn't rewatch the film for 20 years.
Oh my gosh, we have to do it all again?
No way.
Cheaper and better.
Don't screw it up.
It's the amazing story.
It was the most expensive movie ever made.
Oh my fucking God.
Fans lost their minds.
That's Hollywood.
Of Spider-Man.
Spider-Man's just cool. Come on, end of story.
For decades, the heroes of DC dominated the comic book landscape. But in the early 60s, they were finally challenged by a worthy competitor, the newly rebranded Marvel Comics.
Marvel Comics was founded by Martin Goodman.
And it was basically a new fledgling company, so they had to roll out new characters. Stan Lee was the writer of almost all the books.
And Stan Lee was off to a fantastic start.
Fantastic Four, first one to come out of the gate.
Stan was hard at work putting Marvel on the map. And if anyone understands the importance of Stan's legacy, it's his heir.
My name is Cheryl Rhodes, and I was handpicked by Stan Lee to succeed him as publisher of Marvel.
But in 1961, Stan reported to Martin Goodman, a notorious traditionalist.
Goodman basically followed the trend. If Westerns were popular, he did Western comics. If romance was popular, he did romance comics.
But with Marvel, Stan Lee's innovative work was reinventing the genre.
He said all I was doing was trying to keep my job by cranking out a lot of comics. They had to keep coming. And so he was cranking out these comic books.
And I saw a fly crawling on the wall. And I said to myself, wow, what if I had a superhero who could crawl on walls or stick to a ceiling like an insect? And I needed a name. And I went down the list and I got to Spider-Man. I said, that's what I'll call him.
He brought it together with this idea of this teenager who got bitten by a radioactive spider.
He was just this kid who lived in Queens.
He lived with his aunt and he wanted to meet girls.
He's a teenager with problems in the real world.
People didn't like him, and he was a bit of a nerd.
Peter Parker is the complete opposite of what had traditionally worked as secret identities.
He wasn't from another planet.
Another galaxy, as a matter of fact.
He's not a billionaire playboy.
Hi, Bruce Wayne. Stan thought that the character should be more of a normal person.
And he took the idea to Martin Goodman.
Having been pitched the greatest comic book of all time, Martin Goodman enthusiastically responded.
And Martin turned him down and said, Stan, what are you thinking of? I mean, that's crazy. First of all, superheroes aren't teenagers. Teenagers are sidekicks. Also, part spider. Nobody likes spiders. People will hate that.
Stan's Spider Hero comic book had been rejected as a series, but Goodman didn't say anything about a one-shot.
Marvel Comics had a book called Amazing Fantasy. It was a book that they rotated characters.
It was about to be killed, and nobody cares what goes in the last issue, so Stan threw the Spider-Man character into the last issue.
But Stan couldn't do it alone.
He worked with Jack Kirby to create the costume.
But he didn't like Jack's take on Spider-Man, so he threw it over to Steve Ditko.
Steve Ditko kind of came in and breathed life to it.
He had this funky, quirky style.
Steve Ditko's work took advantage of the comic book medium.
Where a lot of stuff's kind of spindly and exaggerated and surreal, and with Ditko's work, you really see the spider in Spider-Man, you know?
Steve Ditko also came up with this, the Zoop.
It's kind of remarkable that Spider-Man was in a book that was going to be buried. It essentially was going to be forgotten. Marvel, they just wanted to let Stan get it out of his system.
And on August 1st, 1962, Amazing Fantasy's final issue, without fanfare, rolled off the presses.
And it was a hit.
Sales rocketed.
It was sold out.
So they said, let's give him his own book. Amazing Spider-Man, #1 is born.
And it clicked.
It's Spider-Man!
I adored Stan. This is the only bone of contention we ever had where we actually were in disagreement. The charm and the success of Spider-Man, Peter Parker, was it because he's the everyday guy. I think that Spider-Man works on a lot of levels for kids because he's so damn cool. You can stick to walls, and you can hang upside down, and you can shoot webs, and you can swing around. That's the appeal, to me, of Spider-Man.
Marvel was more than happy to cash in on the friendly neighborhood phenomenon.
By the mid-60s, there's already pajamas, hats, toys. I mean, Spider-Man was a thing.
Throughout this time, Stan Lee was constantly shipping the rights to Spider-Man around to anybody who would listen.
Spider-Man was big. And the only thing bigger than comics for kids in the 60s?
Like many people, I grew up on the Saturday morning cartoons.
Here comes your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
The Spider-Man cartoon, I wanted to watch it like religiously.
I would sit on the floor watching Spider-Man cartoon with Spider-Man comics out, and then my mum would come in and turn the telly off and say, go outside, you need to get sunlight.
Spider-Man, Spider-Man, does whatever a spider can.
We all remember that theme song.
There goes a Spider-Man.
That stuck in our heads forever.
Music may have charm, but this is too much.
And Marvel could produce Spider-Man cheaply thanks to tricks like recycled animation, which leaned heavily into Spidey swinging across the New York skyline.
The animated series, Spider-Man just kind of lends itself to that.
My spider senses are starting to tingle.
There's a certain kind of charm to it, you know?
Marvel looked to bring Spidey to young and old alike.
Spider-Man!
The first live-action Spider-Man landed on the children's show The Electric Company.
Well, if it isn't the wall-crawling creep.
While the kids segment was a hit, adults wouldn't get to see Spider-Man hit anything for another 3 years, when Nicholas Hammond would play the wall crawler in primetime.
Hey, look! It's that Spider-Man!
But Marvel would soon learn television had its limitations.
The budget on the TV series wasn't particularly high.
While the budget didn't allow for many of Spider-Man's classic moves, it did allow for shots of Spider-Man looking around. Lots and lots of shots of Spider-Man looking around.
They also didn't have the budget to necessarily do all of the really popular Marvel villains that fans wanted to see.
As a result, Spider-Man's rogues gallery was replaced by ninjas.
Where are the supervillains?
Lots and lots of ninjas. And while zipping across the skyline would prove challenging, TV Spider-Man found a way.
Can you get me a little closer?
The special effects, I mean, you know, it was cheap television.
And he'd go and do his thing with the webbing, and then off stage, a couple prop people threw like a fishing net over the bad guy, flew, and then the bad guy would go like that and go, oh man, look at that.
Okay, you call the police and tell them about the bomb.
Right.
It was really crude and really silly. You couldn't really make him crawl up walls.
Spider-Man lasted 1 year, and that's all I think people could take.
Needless to say, the show fell short of fans' expectations.
I wasn't crazy about it. I didn't think it captured the superhero genre well enough.
Despite its reception, Stan had succeeded in bringing Spider-Man to a larger audience.
Whether it was low budget, high budget, animated, Stan, he just cared that this thing that he made
Was being loved by even more people.
Stan was determined to spread the gospel of Spidey.
He believed that a Spider-Man film would be a great way to help market the comic books.
Door after door was closed in smiling Stan's face until one day.
Canon Films got the rights. Canon was the low-budget place.
But Stan knew it wasn't about perfection. It was about promotion. And Canon were willing to bring Spider-Man to the cinema.
They've got a certain amount of time to make movies, and if they don't, the rights go back.
They're independent film producers. They really wanted to make this movie on the cheap.
Spider-Man, the movie. A live-action spectacular.
The director of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was the first director who was going to tackle this.
And when it came to casting, no one was off the table.
Tom Cruise was even looked at for Peter Parker.
There is no substitute.
And this was Tom Cruise right before Top Gun.
I'm Maverick.
But I would have probably at that time said, Tom Cruise, what are you talking about?
Well, it was Canon who were all talk, as plans to begin filming fizzled.
They could never really get filmmakers who wanted to collaborate on their vision because of the way that they wanted to nickel and dime the whole production.
As it turns out, Hollywood had a preview of what a low-budget Spider-Man looked like, and it was not good.
Canon Films recognized how valuable that IP was, and they knew that no matter how long they strung it along, they would figure out some way to make it profitable.
While the film failed to get off the ground at Canon, Spider-Man's hype man never stopped trying to bring Spidey to the big screen.
Stan Lee met with James Cameron. Stan mentioned to him, I hear you're a Spider-Man fan, and that really put a light bulb on over James Cameron's head, and he thought maybe I can pursue this.
For the first time, an A-list director was prepared to bring Spider-Man to the big screen.
James Cameron wrote a great script for Spider-Man.
And this is where things get complicated.
Who has the rights to what? It's all very complicated.
In 1989, after Canon Films failed to produce a Spider-Man film, the rights were splintered and sold to the highest bidder.
The rights were a mess. Sony buys their home video rights, Viacom buys their broadcast rights.
But it was theatrical rights James Cameron had his eye on.
James Cameron became interested in Spider-Man as a property that he wanted to pursue. This was right after Terminator and before he was taking on Titanic.
Soon after, James Cameron's longtime collaborators, Carolco, began to pursue the rights.
So Carolco did. They bought the rights to Spider-Man for $5 million.
And with the rights in hand, James Cameron began to adapt Spider-Man.
Cameron wrote a very extensive treatment.
A 28-page treatment.
It was an origin story. His villains were Electro and Sandman.
With Cameron's Aliens guys, Michael Biehn and Lance Henriksen were being eyed to play those characters.
He was thinking about having Leonardo DiCaprio play Spider-Man.
Hold on to the railing. Keep your eyes closed, don't peek.
James Cameron's take on Spider-Man was distinctly mature, at times bordering on erotic.
There was a sex scene on the Brooklyn Bridge.
People wanted to see Spider-Man in action on the big screen.
If Spider-Man gets laid, that's great for Spider-Man, but it doesn't make sense for the Spider-Man that we had seen so far.
But before James Cameron ruined the childhood of multiple generations, news broke that would change everything.
Carolco went bankrupt thanks to a really overproduced movie called Cutthroat Island.
Cutthroat Island had sunk the Carolco ship and was poised to take Spider-Man down with it.
The rights to their library, both produced and unproduced, became available, and MGM UA acquired the rights to Spider-Man, and very specifically the James Cameron version. I was slated to be the executive who would oversee the movie. I'm a comic book fan. I was a Spider-Man fan. I was a James Cameron fan. It was an amazing opportunity to not only get to work with James Cameron, but to get to work with this character, Spider-Man. It was such a world of possibilities. I was thrilled.
News of an MGM-produced Spider-Man film resulted in more than a few raised eyebrows.
The studio
They've got a certain amount of time to make movies, and if they don't, the rights go back.
And with still no Spider-Man film, Marvel believed time was up.
The rights to the character returned to Marvel.
But at the moment, Marvel was more concerned with paying the bills than cinematic aspirations.
Since the 1960s, when Marvel first came out, comic readers, they've watched Marvel go from being the dominant leader in the comic world, carrying more than 2/3 of the market, down to a dwindling 1/3.
It seems inconceivable today, but Marvel Comics went into bankruptcy.
The whole comic book industry was losing money. And so we were now owned by the bankruptcy courts and reporting to a judge.
Sony saw Marvel's bankruptcy as an opportunity.
My name is Yair Landau. I was EVP of Corporate Development. You know, Sony had acquired Columbia Pictures, but was starved for large, relatable properties. So I put together a deal to buy Marvel out of bankruptcy for $500 million.
But it wouldn't be that easy, as Sony wasn't the only interested party.
We have come here uninvited and unannounced.
I do know that Michael Jackson wanted to buy Marvel.
Michael Jackson wanted to mount films and wanted to be in films. He lobbied, but I don't think it ever was going to work.
But Sony acquiring Marvel wasn't a foregone conclusion, as Toy Biz,
Marvel Superhero,
who held the license to make Marvel toys,
Spider-Man,
stepped up to the plate with a rival bid to buy the publisher.
Toy Biz had a competing offer. While we thought our offer was superior, the court decided to take Toy Biz's offer.
He's all yours, Spidey.
Toy Biz was owned by Ike Perlmutter.
He specialized in properties that were suffering from bankruptcy and was ready to liquidate the entire company.
Ike came in, he fired everybody, all the executives, including Stan Lee. Stan Lee and I were fired on the same day.
For Ike to fire Stan Lee, he sent a shockwave through the Marvel bullpen. Thankfully, Ike's partner was a true believer.
Ike had a partner named Avi Arad.
Avi was a brilliant toy designer, but Avi also knew comic books.
Avi is the one who had the vision of licensing these characters.
And so, looking to sell the filming rights, Marvel turned to a studio they knew would be interested.
Avi and Ike offer Sony the entire library of Marvel characters for $25 million.
If Yair could close a deal, it would be the deal of the century.
$25 million for 25 Marvel properties.
Victorious, Yair returned to Sony with the good news.
And they said they weren't interested in 25 Marvel properties. They told me to go back and only negotiate a deal for Spider-Man. I thought it was a mistake. I believe I told them they were fucking idiots. I know that Avi told us we were fucking idiots. Ultimately, the negotiation of that deal lasted for over a year. We ended up paying $10 million for Spider-Man.
Despite his misgivings, Yair managed to squeeze in one very important detail.
As part of that deal, as long as Sony Pictures has a Spider-Man property in development, Sony Pictures retains the rights to Spider-Man.
Sony had just paid $10 million to potentially own Spider-Man forever. There was just one problem.
MGM UA acquired the rights to Spider-Man.
When Canon owned the rights to Spider-Man, they believed they had the authority to sell those rights. And perhaps they did. It was up to the judge, or in this case, several judges.
And it was basically the battle for ownership of Spider-Man.
Sony didn't want to go forward with a Spider-Man movie if they couldn't own every facet of the character and profit 100%.
Sony had a piece of the rights, MGM had a piece of the rights, Marvel had some rights, Columbia believed they had some rights.
This led to MGM UA suing Sony.
Because MGM thinks that it has the rights.
And it was just a mess. It was a legal mess, a mess in terms of business, and it was an emotional mess, I think, for a lot of us. Ultimately, it was settled out of court.
And then they make like this great trade.
Can I help?
Why, Mr. Bond?
MGM wants the rights to specific James Bond properties.
Sony gave MGM rights to Casino Royale, and in return, amongst other things, MGM gave Sony the rights to Spider-Man.
It took a decade, but the rights to Spider-Man had finally been unified. There was just one loose end.
Stan, his original contract at Marvel, said he was publisher for life, and it certainly looked like it was giving them a license to use his characters. When they fired him, it became questionable whether they had lost their license for all of Stan's superhero characters. Marvel, realizing what a mistake that they had made, they had to hire Stan back and give him a new contract which gave him 10% of everything, and then they had the rights.
Stan was back, this time with 10%, and the rights were finally secure, which meant...
Go, Web, go!
A Spider-Man movie was finally going to happen. The scattered filming rights to Spider-Man had been reunified at Sony, who were fully committed and ready to go.
There was a lot of money at stake. $140-ish million movie was kind of unheard of.
The Amazing Spider-Man!
This movie had to work. Sony worked really hard to get the rights.
Luckily, Sony's chairperson knew how to get things done.
Amy Pascal, it wasn't common to have, at that point, a female chairman.
She's a force of nature, and she will not take no.
You're talking one of the Hollywood powerhouses that knows how to make movies.
And she has great instincts.
And her instincts told her to go all in on Spider-Man.
There was so much pressure to make this something unbelievable.
Sony needed a point person who understood production, but could also shepherd creative.
Laura Ziskin,
who had a long history in bringing A-list films to the big screen.
She was a real character-driven producer, and she and Amy had a very long-standing relationship.
And as for the filmmaker attached to Spider-Man, well, that was a short-lived relationship, because bankruptcy and corporate acquisitions became too much for James Cameron, who left Spider-Man and his treatment behind him. Ziskin opted out of using the script.
Go, Web!
But there was one Cameron contribution
Fly!
that survived.
In the comics, Spider-Man has mechanical web shooters.
Simple doohickey and zowie.
The organic web shooter notion.
Up and away, Web!
That was Jim's idea, that it was a mutation that allowed him to shoot webbing from his wrist.
There was one more moment from James Cameron's treatment that would make it into Oscar montages for years to come. Only it wouldn't be in a Spider-Man film.
There is a scene with Peter and Mary Jane on the top of the Brooklyn Bridge where he basically holds her in the web and she leans out over the water.
Hold on. Keep your eyes closed. Do you trust me?
Just like Leo and Kate in Titanic. Cameron had envisioned that for Peter and Mary Jane and then later realized it in Titanic.
I'm flying!
Veteran action writer David Koepp began work on a new script.
He's got my money!
Thanks. He wanted to focus on the criminal that kills Uncle Ben.
Carjacker, he's been shot.
But to bring Spider-Man to a wider audience, they would need a director who could bring the web-slinging action fans wanted, as well as heart, to Peter Parker's underdog story.
They were considering everybody. David Fincher, Tim Burton came in, but essentially admitted he was more of a DC guy.
But a promising candidate began to emerge.
Chris Columbus, when he was a kid, he wanted to be a comic book artist before he wanted to be a filmmaker. Sony, they were very interested in him.
But Columbus found himself at the starting gate of not one, but two franchises.
Harry Potter needed another director. Suddenly, Chris was like, that kind of changes everything.
Columbus's exodus had knocked Sony back to square one. Desperate, they began meeting with even the most unlikely directors.
Groovy. Sam Raimi comes to pitch himself for the film.
He came from outside the system. He wasn't some film school kid. I mean, he used his dad's credit cards to pay for his first movie, and he used his friends to do it.
You're not gonna leave me here, are you? Are you, ass?
He had directed a few other films since then, some of them a little bit more mainstream.
But he'd never worked on a movie with this kind of budget or this level before.
Nobody wanted him to do it because he had done horror movies and stuff like that. But it turned out that Sam Raimi was a comic book geek.
Sam loved Spider-Man, and he loved Steve Ditko's Spider-Man.
He really associated with the fact that this was a loner kid who struggled to fit in.
He really wanted to do justice to the character.
As a filmmaker, Sam's dynamic visual style would be the perfect complement for Spider-Man's off-the-wall action.
Dolly angles and like Dutch stuff. He created his own visual language.
He understood the visual vocabulary of comic books.
Amy liked to say, and I think we all agreed, Sam was Peter Parker.
What sets Spider-Man apart is his humanity. Luckily, Laura Ziskin had a writer on retainer, her husband, legendary screenwriter Alvin Sargent.
Very much considered among the cream of the crop.
Alvin's script focused on Peter's personal journey to make a choice.
With great power comes great responsibility.
which made the Green Goblin the perfect antagonist. Peter's one-time father figure
That makes you family.
turned Spider-Man's archenemy.
Alvin shaped it and gave it its heart.
This, like any story worth telling, is all about a girl.
To pull it off, Sam Raimi began to build a team of filmmakers and effects artists.
My name is Doug Leffler, one of the storyboard artists. My biggest contribution,
You have a knack for getting in trouble.
when Spider-Man and MJ were supposed to kiss for the first time, I did a drawing of Spider-Man hanging upside down. When I showed it to Sam and when I showed it to Laura, they both embraced it immediately.
Amazing.
Excitement over Doug Leffler's storyboards meant the pressure was on to find a cinematographer that could do them justice.
My name is Forrest Gump.
My name is Don Burgess. I'm a director of photography. My agent, he said, I'm sending you a script for Spider-Man. And I'm thinking, I was never much of a comic book reader as a kid. The first comic book that I actually read was a Spider-Man comic book in the waiting room to see Sam Raimi. But I think Sam sold me on the spot. You know, I jumped on board.
When it came to actually shooting Spider-Man in action, Sam and Don had a lot to figure out. Luckily, they found a patient stunt coordinator in Jeff Haberstad.
So the stunt work was very substantial, and I'm always nervous about not making it the coolest it can be.
Practical stunt work and practical effects would be at the center of Sam Raimi's approach, while digital artists waited on the bench, as practical effects could only do so much.
Especially given what had happened in the past, Spider-Man had to be convincing.
I was fascinated with everything that the script asked for, but I don't know how the hell we're gonna make it.
I mean, how do you get a dude swinging around New York City at 70 miles an hour?
How do you make that look real and authentic?
It was at this inflection point where computer graphics had proven themselves on some movies as a new tool, but everyone was still skeptical.
He's embarrassing.
Every advancement in modern special effects can be traced back to one man.
My name is John Dykstra, and I designed the visual effects for 2 of the Spider-Man movies.
The problems of realizing Star Wars. I mean, Dykstra solved a lot of those problems.
But despite falling out with George Lucas, John struck out on his own, always working to stay on the forefront of practical and digital effects.
The holy grail at that time was trying to make a digital image look like film.
Making him the perfect partner for a director caught in between the practical and digital world. Departments began to game plan storyboards.
Let's shoot everything we can practically. Anything we can't do practically, let's do with computer graphics.
All the departments would go in with storyboards, and we would go frame by frame and say what department is doing what.
And I remember there being a lot of, is this really a visual effects call? Is this really a production design call?
One element Sam Raimi was determined to do practically was Green Goblin's mask.
They were really gunning for having a fully animatronic head for Green Goblin.
While Sam's team was making headway on Green Goblin and Spider-Man designs, one question remained. Who would wear them? Stan Lee and Steve Ditko defied the status quo, making their hero an awkward teen. But it remained to be seen if Sony would make the same gamble, as this wasn't the last issue of a canceled comic book, but rather a massive motion picture with millions on the line.
Who is Spider-Man?
There was a lot of acrimony about who would play the part.
Sony cast an extremely large net. Almost anybody who was viable for the part. Freddie Prinze Jr.
It's got to be some kind of mistake.
Heath Ledger.
Yeah, sure, Sparky.
Jake Gyllenhaal.
No way.
Almost anybody who fit that age range, their headshot crossed the casting director's desk.
But Sam Raimi found himself drawn to a far more unassuming performer.
Hey, everyone.
Tobey Maguire was an up-and-comer.
He wasn't really somebody who commanded the screen.
Tobey primarily shined in supporting roles.
I felt like one in a dream.
That's who Sam wanted from the get-go.
And he felt really strongly about it.
Hey! Stop the bus!
Sony were questioning if he was the right fit.
Don't even think about it.
He does seem like a sidekick.
The studio was convinced that for the franchise to succeed,
They know it hasn't worked at a bunch of different studios.
they'd need a household name heartthrob, not Tobey Maguire.
Tobey wasn't that well known.
There's no featherweight division here, small fry.
I remember the studio really rebelled. They thought he didn't look handsome enough, virile enough. I think they were looking for someone who just felt more macho because they didn't understand the franchise.
Raimi knew who this character was.
You gotta have that underdog quality for Spider-Man.
It had become clear Tobey Maguire could play Peter Parker.
But was he Spider-Man? Nobody knew.
It was a question Sony would need answered before even considering Maguire.
The physicality of Spider-Man, he's essentially an acrobat. So he has to be a strong, buff kind of guy. But you have this incredibly skinny kid.
If you're putting up $150 million, you want to see what the guy looks like on screen.
Which meant a screen test. Sam Raimi was suddenly tasked with turning the actor from Wonder Boys.
Did I do anything bad?
Into Spider-Man.
Toby had to get into shape to get, the ripped chest and all of that good stuff.
And he did a physical stunt test for the executives.
So we did this scene from the movie where these three thugs mug MJ.
Teach you little manners here.
And out of nowhere, Spider-Man had come.
Get the out of here.
So we did this fight scene. And all of a sudden they go fling, fling, fling. Toby in that scene definitely looked like a badass superhero dude.
Yeah. Big change.
After that, and he got the job.
Sam Raimi was right to want Tobey Maguire because he was exactly the franchise.
Another adaptation challenge was bringing Stan Lee and Steve Ditko's iconic costume to life.
All he has to do is turn in his little blue tights.
As fans were expecting more than Nicholas Hammond's used tights.
Spider-Man's suit is a difficult one.
That is a very intricate suit, with every little web hand glued on.
But there was a bigger concern looming over the costume department.
It was not a comfortable suit, and it was very difficult to get in. There was only one zipper that came back here. He had to put the whole thing over, get it all on with the mask, and zip it up, and that took about 20 minutes. And if you wanted to get out of it quickly, you're not going to.
But comfort was just the beginning of Toby's problems with the suit.
He puts on the headpiece, and he went nuts because he's claustrophobic, and he literally tore it off.
You put an actor who's claustrophobic in a suit like that, it's a big problem.
I remember Toby just going, oh my God, can I take this thing off for a while?
You would think at the studio they might check to see if their actor is claustrophobic,
Toby may have had anxiety, but so did Peter Parker, especially when in the presence of Mary Jane Watson.
Peter was always less than in cool points than MJ was.
Initially, Sam Raimi offered the role to Kate Hudson, but the actress had already been committed to star in The Four Feathers.
You could have cast a lot of people in that role.
And while Elizabeth Banks' audition didn't land her the role of MJ, it did put her in the offices of the Daily Bugle as J. Jonah Jameson's assistant, Betty Brant.
Welcome to the Daily Bugle.
The coveted role of MJ would go to Kirsten Dunst, hot on the heels of playing another high school it girl in the runaway hit Bring It On.
This is not a democracy, it's a cheerocracy.
For the role of Peter's best friend, Sony turned to the cast of Freaks and Geeks, snagging up-and-coming actor James Franco to play Harry Osborn.
Leave him alone. Or what? Or his father will fire your father.
But casting Harry's father, also known as the Green Goblin, would prove much more difficult.
Sony wanted to cast Nick Cage as the Green Goblin.
You make me sick!
Nick Cage really wanted to be part of the comic book movie world.
Yeah, I mean, you were saying it'll feel a little looser the more I wear it.
Nicolas Cage was the first choice for the Green Goblin, but instead, Cage opted to make adaptation while holding out hope for a Superman film.
John Malkovich is offered the part.
But just before signing the dotted line, Malkovich backed out.
Sometimes it just doesn't come together.
Sending Sony back to the drawing board.
While Sam Raimi struggled to find his Green Goblin, the effects team struggled with the Goblin's animatronic mask.
There's whole archives of iterations of the Goblin mask. They had this puppeteered one.
His eyebrows articulated and his lips snarled and everything.
That's a fine line to walk because you're in a live action environment and you don't want it to look cartoon-like.
I think at the end of the day, it was hard to sell the notion that he put on a mask and that it came to life like that.
Here's the real truth.
And just nothing would work.
After trying the animatronic head, they went in this sort of battle mask look. That wasn't as cool, but the Green Goblin helmet as it stood, it did work as something that he put on and became a character.
The Green Goblin's mask had been completed long before the role had been cast, and Sony grew desperate to find an actor worthy of playing Spider-Man's great foe. Sony was on the hunt for a madman, and after a few close calls in casting, Sony finally found their unhinged man.
Me.
Green Goblin is a little crazy. Willem Dafoe does crazy pretty good.
Nothing, fuck!
Willem Dafoe played Green Goblin as an absolute madman.
We killed them.
We?
Remember?
Even when he's not trying, I don't know what he's capable of.
Willem Dafoe scares me.
You know how much I sacrificed?
I'd watch that guy read Chinese menus.
He's terrifying.
You know, just stop, Willem Dafoe. You're drunk. Go home.
I could squash you like a bug.
The Mask, Willem Dafoe said it made him feel safe in going really big.
Impressive!
As production began, Sony had over a decade invested in the film. The troubled studio needed the film to work, which resulted in Sony questioning Sam Raimi's decisions every step along the way.
He wanted to do a bright film. He didn't want to do something cynical and dark.
But cynical and dark was in.
I'm through doing hell's dirty work.
Macabre comic book adaptations had proven to be a successful formula, but Raimi chose to swim against the stream.
It was just a really fun, kind of playful tone.
Hi, guys.
You haven't eaten anything. Have you got your lunch money?
Yeah, I got it.
The mood of the film, it was kind of trying to keep it as natural and as simple as possible at the beginning. Peter Parker at home.
Teenagers.
It was enough to make Sony question if Sam Raimi was even trying to make a superhero film.
What's your name, kid?
The human spider.
First day of shooting, we did the fight scene.
We spent a substantial amount of rigging, prep, and rehearse to get that dialed in just right.
1,200 extras.
What are you doing up there?
Sam Raimi filmed the entire match using practical effects.
I mean, so much of it was just so perfectly achieved.
As production pushed onward, Sam Raimi had every department asking themselves one question. How can this be shot?
Practical.
Practical.
Practical? Practical.
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 3, 2, 1, go.
We did a lot of things in camera that were a lot of fun.
But the director's hesitation to take advantage of the latest digital advances became a concern for the studio.
I don't think the studio agreed with it.
So how did they make the wall crawler crawl up a wall?
We did not put Tobey Maguire or a stuntman on the side of a building.
Fans had already seen how well that turned out.
So what we did was they built the wall flat, and the camera was turned sideways so that it looked like he was going up.
It was almost embarrassing of how simple it was.
But a sideways camera can only do so much, as the shots became more and more difficult, especially for Tobey.
Tobey had to do a lot of physical things where he literally had to be cabled to ceilings. Willem Dafoe comes over.
Now, where is Peter?
He senses something's not right. And the camera reveals that Tobey is literally stuck to the ceiling in a very uncomfortable position and acting and playing the part.
While some practical effects relied on old tricks,
Stale is a better adjective, Robin.
some techniques required innovation.
The scene where his eyesight comes back, he has his glasses on, he takes them off, he puts them back on.
We created the illusion that you're looking in the mirror and he's taking his glasses on and off. So I had extra large glasses made and I put them over the lens of the camera, and so I would hold the glasses and I would match Tobey with the glasses like this, and he's looking in the mirror and he's seeing the reflection, but he's really looking at the camera and he's going like this.
Weird.
But practical didn't always mean simple.
One of the producers asked me to rework a sequence. Sam had MJ slipping and going up in the air and Spider-Man was going to catch her. I didn't really love that idea because what were we saying, that MJ was klutzy? So I had come up with this idea that some kid's roughhousing at one of the tables, bump her and send her tray flying into the air, and that Peter would spin around and catch the tray, and then we would have all of the items go boom, 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 boom. And that was something that would be a lot quicker to film than putting your lead actress in a stunt harness.
But Sam Raimi wasn't interested in a simple plan.
Sam absolutely loved that idea, and he said, "This is great, we'll do that too."
And with that, Doug Leffler's genius became his undoing.
Instead of making the scene something that could be shot within the time allotted, I guaranteed that it would never be shot within the time allotted.
The pressure for Doug Leffler to pull off the cafeteria stunt was doubled, thanks to a growing number of lurking Sony executives looking to build a case for firing Sam Raimi. After creating Spider-Man's iconic kiss, Doug Leffler had pitched another trailer-worthy moment.
Spider-Man, gallantly slides over, catches the girl, grabs the tray, and catches all the food on the tray.
Only one question remained.
How are we going to do it? We ended up putting a magnet in the tray itself, and then all the food items, so they would stick to the tray. When she slipped, I undercranked the camera so that everything was in sped-up motion. Then the catch with the effects man just out of frame, dropping food onto the tray, bop, 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 bop. And there he is, he's got the girl and the tray and all of that.
Great reflexes.
And then crank the camera back up to 24 frames for the dialogue to finish the scene. It took all day to pull that shot off.
And by a day, Don means 156 takes.
Wow.
And the shot, I think, holds up to this day. I think it still works pretty well.
Thanks.
No problem.
The scene was a triumph for the film and Doug, who Sam would begin to rely more and more on.
Doug Leffler was very involved in designing the sequences with Sam and drawing them, so Sam then wanted to give him an opportunity to direct.
A lot of the stuff that I ended up directing was the montage of Spider-Man first discovering his powers, the robbery at the Korean deli. There was a few muggings in there. The armored car break-in.
For the armored car robbery, Doug knew practical effects wouldn't be enough.
Watch the street!
And it was time to take Spidey digital.
We have one shot where Spider-Man takes out 4 or 5 guys in a single shot, except Spider-Man's not actually in that shot, or he wasn't in that shot when we filmed it.
The plan was to use real actors, then add a computer-generated Spidey in post.
Given that you had to break the reality of the rules of physics, he needed a certain level of technology to be able to pull this off.
Creating a digital double for Spider-Man was actually not a small feat at that point in time.
We had to work out every bit of action and then time it with all the stunt guys on wires getting knocked left and right and pulled, and they had to all, react. But it was a very difficult thing to coordinate.
Unfortunately, not every executive could wrap their head around the emerging technology.
Executives at the studio were really upset when they saw it because they couldn't figure out why all these stuntmen were just standing there and then getting flung around, and there was no Spider-Man in the shot. They fired me. They said they needed to get somebody that understood how to do action. I got a call from Laura Ziskin saying, this isn't about you. The studio is trying to control Sam. They can't fire Sam, so they shot the person standing next to him.
With shots fired, along with Doug, Sony had sent Sam Raimi a message.
A lot of times when people got hired to make comic book movies, they were trying to figure out how to make a comic book film that really wasn't a comic book film. Sam wanted to make a comic book film. He really did want to do something that was bright and colorful.
Sam may have seen the film as bright and colorful, but Sony had a different interpretation.
Studio was worried that it would look too much like a cartoon.
And Sony's fears were about to be confirmed.
An image of Willem Dafoe from a battle scene with the balloons leaked onto the internet.
The leak turned the internet into an unintentional focus group for Sony, as fans took to MySpace, message boards, and comment sections to share their thoughts.
People weren't saying anyone involved with the Green Goblin costume should be shot.